So with 2.4 right around the corner, I wanted to make this video to help you decide which free 4-star you should get in terms of not only the characters themselves, but also notable constellations to go for if you are close. And so with that, let's move on to the video. But before that, if you do enjoy this video, then consider giving it a like and a subscribe, helps out a ton. So first up, we have Xingqiu. So Xingqiu's an incredibly good character, probably one of the best 4-stars out there right now, not only in terms of his great damage he can output, but also the fact that he is the best applier of the hydro element right now, which is vital to not only freeze comps but also vaporize ones as well. And so if you are needing a hydro character, then Xingqiu definitely could be the one for you. And so to simply answer the question of is Xingqiu worth getting, 1000% yes, as even as the game goes on, as more and more characters get released, I still believe that Xingqiu will remain as one of the top DPSs in the game. But now, how are his constellations and which ones are worth getting for him? Well, the first would be a C2. This helps his burst out so much by increasing the duration as well as decreasing the hydro resistance of the enemy, helping out not only Xingqiu but other hydro allies as well. The other constellation worth going for would be his C6, which is an incredible DPS increase to Xingqiu as well as helping him with high energy costs. And so if you are near any of these constellations, then definitely pick them up. You won't be disappointed. Now then, we reach our next character, Chongyun. So Chongyun is a solid cryo character who can output incredible amounts of cryo burst damage through both his skill and burst, and is able to infuse other characters' attacks with cryo damage, which could be very good or bad depending on what you're looking for. Now, he isn't seen in many comps, however one he is seen in quite often is a national team with other 4-stars in it, and he does really well, mainly due to not only his element but his relatively low energy costs, meaning he can spam out his burst a ton. And so if you are looking for a reliable 4-star burst cryo damage dealer, then Chongyun could be the one for you. Although there are other good cryo characters like Rosario or Kaya who fit a similar sort of roles, and so unlike Xingqiu, who's sort of a one-of-a-kind character, Chongyun could definitely be replaced. But now his constellations are pretty decent. The main one to look out for if you are near it is his C2, which helps out his team a lot by decreasing the skill and burst cooldowns by 15%, which makes them so much more useful in national teams as they will be able to spam out their abilities that much faster. Moving on to our next character, Beidou. So Beidou is an incredible character capable of outputting great damage on her own or being a sub DPS, but sadly is a little held back due to her element not being the greatest right now. But even so, she can output insane amounts of damage, especially when dealing with multiple enemies. Due to how her burst works with jumping between the enemies and dealing electro damage, she can absolutely shred hydro enemies well. However, I feel that she's a little held back again due to her element, but also the fact that she has quite high energy costs and takes quite a bit of ramping up to get going. And so you will need a battery for your team to help Beidou get to her burst faster. But now her constellations are pretty good. She has a few good ones, notable C2, which helps out her damage a ton and can make her one of the best characters when clearing out multiple enemies, and her C6 will also help her out and her team by decreasing the electro resistance of nearby enemies. And so overall, Beidou is a pretty good character, but is hindered by a few things, and so compared to some other 4-stars on this list like Xingqiu, I think there are better options for you to choose. But now we reach Xiangling. So she is an absolute monster at DPS, outputting some of the highest DPS in the game while only being a 4-star character, and one that I would rate among the best alongside Xingqiu and Bennett. So she's a pyro character that has a very strong burst, making her a very valuable character in not only national teams but any pyro comp out there. And so if you don't have her, then I would 100% recommend getting her. She is alongside Xingqiu one of the best on the list right now. But now if you already have her and wondering if you should go for a constellation, well, her C1 is very good, as it will allow her own abilities as well as other pyro party members to deal more damage, as it will decrease the enemy's pyro resistance by 15% for 6 seconds. Her C4 will increase her burst duration by a whopping 40%, which will allow her to have almost 100% uptime if you can manage her energy, which is nuts, especially with how much damage it does. And so I highly recommend getting her if you don't have her yet. But now we come to Ningguang. So a very interesting character that is a geo-catalyst user and one that is receiving a skin, and so many people will probably start playing her due to that. And so is she worth picking up? So firstly, she is strong, like really strong. In terms of 4 stars, I'd rate her on the top, and this is mainly due to her crazy damage with her charged attacks, but also her burst that will destroy enemies, especially if she's heavily invested into, which is something to note, as unlike the previous 4 stars, Ningguang is a 4 star that does require a bit of investment to get going, meaning you can't just chuck her in any old team and do well like the previous 4 stars. You do have to build around her. Also to note is her constellations. She does need them, at least the first one, which helps her out so much, as without it she does have some difficulty when dealing with multiple enemies, as she doesn't have any good AoE abilities, and so getting this is very vital to becoming a good Ningguang. Now her C6 is also a very good one, probably not as needed as her C1, but if you are looking to deal tons of damage with her, it helps out a ton. And so if you are thinking of picking up Ningguang, then do be wary that you will need to put in a lot of investment. Now we have Xinyan. So some of you may be wondering, who is this new character? Well, there isn't a new character, there's Xinyan, probably the least popular character in the game. But now, is she worth it? Well, firstly, the main sort of issue with her is that her kit is very all over the place, not really having a clear idea of what she wants to do. On one hand, she has a shield that will boost physical damage, which on paper is a great thing. However, with the enormous 18-second cooldown, as well as the poor scaling on her shield, as well as her overall poor pyro damage, she can never really fit a shielder role or even a DPS role, and so she sadly falls pretty flat. Maybe if miHoYo adjusted her abilities, she could be decent, but at the moment I feel in this list there are much better choices. Now we reach Yanfei. So Yanfei's an interesting character, one who deals a ton of pyro damage and is extremely good at applying pyro due to her being a catalyst user. So firstly, due to her being the same element and weapon, she often gets compared to Klee, being referred to as the 4-star version, and while that is somewhat true, she is a lot better to play than Klee, as you won't have to worry about jump cancelling, auto attack cancelling, all that stuff, which makes Yanfei much more enjoyable in the long run. But again, being a 4-star, she's not going to hit the DPS highs that Klee will be able to. Now personally, I've never been a huge catalyst user, but from what I've played of Yanfei, she is really fun, and one that doesn't require too much investment that compared to previous catalyst user Ningguang. However, one constellation that I do recommend you go for if you already have her is her C1, as it helps out with her charge attack stamina cost that is vital for catalyst users. But if you already have that, then her other constellations, while good, are mostly just DPS increases, nothing too major. And finally, we reach our last 4-star, and one that many will probably be summoning for her, as seen as she is the new 4-star to be released with 2.4, and that is YunJin. So YunJin is a 4-star that I've gone over in my previous videos, but one that I believe to be very good in the right team. So her burst is where she really shines, as it will first deal AoE geo damage, but after that give party members a buff that will deal bonus damage whenever a party member uses a normal attack, and this will be based off YunJin's defense. So this sounds very useful, especially for characters who attack a lot, like physical damage dealers like Razor or Eula, as they will be able to make full use of this burst, and seeing as she will look to fit that sort of geo support role, it probably means that she won't require that much investment to do well. Now, as far as her constellations go, her C2 is very good. It looks to be pretty much just a further increase to the burst buff by increasing the damage of the party members who normal attack during the buff. Another one to note is her C6, which increases the attack speed of people under the buff, further implying that she should be used with people who like to normal attack a lot. And so if you are looking for a person who can support your party members with a lot of damage, then YunJin is the one for you. But now we finally finished the list, and man, what a list of great characters. And while the choice may vary depending on what characters you have, which constellations you need, I think there are still some standout characters like Xingqiu or Xiangling that I would definitely recommend over some others like Xinyan, but again, it's up to you and what you feel you need. Now personally, as long as I manage to pick YunJin up in the Xinhei banner, I think I'll probably be getting a Xingqiu's constellation in order to make my national team that much stronger. But how about you? Which 4-star are you going for? Leave a comment down below. But as always, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.